The World Cup 2022 group stage has come to a close, and you know what that means. It's finally time for my round of 16 predictions. And trust me, there's gonna be a lot of upsets because I am bold. Anyways, let's start off these predictions with the Netherlands versus my country, the United States. Now, the Netherlands have actually had a pretty good tournament. They topped a relatively easy group with 7 points and beat the likes of Senegal 2-0 when they didn't have Sadio Mane. They drew to Ecuador 1-1 in the game after, and then in the last game, they beat an already eliminated Qatar side 2-0. So on the surface level, it seems like Netherlands are a strong team, which they are on paper. They got world-class players such as Virgil van Dijk, De Ligt, Frenkie de Jong, etc. However, their play on the pitch hasn't been too crazy. I've seen better Netherlands sides in the past. In fact, in the game against Ecuador, they looked pretty weak, and Ecuador honestly dominated that game and deserved to win in my opinion. However, thanks to one particular Dutch player, Cody Gakpo, they finished on top because he's carrying them. Gakpo actually has 3 goals in the 3 group stage games and overall has just been very good for the Netherlands so far. If you're the US, you're definitely watching out for this player. Now, speaking about the US, let's talk about them a little bit. The US has been proving a lot of haters wrong at this World Cup by finishing 2nd place in their group with 5 points. In the first game, they drew to Wales 1-1, where for the most part, USA were the better team, and they were in front for the majority of the game thanks to a Tim Weah goal. Then against England, where there's a lot of history between the two countries, they drew 0-0, and the USA were honestly the better team in that game in my books too. And then of course, in the very important game against Iran, the United States won 1-0 thanks to a great Pulisic goal where he sacrifices balls for his country. He might never become a father after that, but in my eyes, he's a founding father. Overall though, the United States have been playing very well and they seem like a very cohesive unit on the pitch. So which team do I think is going to go through? Well, every time I say the US is going to do bad, they do good. And whenever I say the US is going to do good, they do bad. So with that being said, I got Netherlands winning this game 1-0. And that's going to be thanks to a Cody Gakpo goal. But we know my history with predictions, so we'll see what actually happens. Now, next game up is Argentina versus Australia. Now, Argentina actually did end up topping their group with 6 points despite having an early scare against Saudi Arabia where they somehow lost 2-1. I was at that game too, and let me tell you bruh, everybody in the stands was shocked. Anyways, they didn't let this loss get into their head that much because against Mexico, thanks to a Messi masterclass and a beautiful goal, they won the game 2-0. Then they had to beat Poland to top the group, and that's exactly what they did because they ended up beating Poland 2-0. And Messi did end up missing a penalty, but he low-key did that on purpose to piss off Canelo in my opinion. You just gotta respect it. That's my GOAT. Anyways, most people are gonna say that this is gonna be an easy win for Argentina, but most people said the same thing against Saudi Arabia and Argentina lost. So you can never be too sure. And plus, Australia have been doing very well in this World Cup. Even though in the first game they got destroyed 4-1 by France, they picked it up in the last 2 games by beating Tunisia 1-0 and then surprisingly beat Denmark 1-0 to knock them out of the World Cup and go to the round of 16. So the Aussies are in hot form. Despite this though, I think beating Argentina is a task too big for the Socceroos. And because I think Argentina's loss to Saudi Arabia was a fluke, I'm gonna have to say that Argentina is beating Australia 3-1 in this round of 16 game. I'm sorry, Australia fans. Alright, moving on to the next game, we got France versus Poland. Now, France have been very good at this World Cup. They broke the World Cup curse by topping the group, which is an accomplishment within itself, and they even did great in their first 2 games. Like I said earlier, they beat Australia 4-1, and they also beat Denmark 2-1 in the next game. And reminder, Denmark beat France 2 times in a row in the Nations League right before the World Cup. So France pretty much got their revenge against Denmark at the World Cup. Also, Kylian Mbappe is going off for France and putting the country on his back. He's been one of the best players throughout the entire tournament. So when France decided to use their B team against Tunisia in the last game of the group stages, Mbappe obviously didn't play. And that's where France ended up losing 1-0. However, like I mentioned previously, Mbappe and the rest of the starters weren't even playing in that game, so it's hard to take this game into account. Now for Poland, it's been a difficult road to qualify for the round of 16. They drew the first game to Mexico 0-0, which is a decent result, but it would have been easier if they just won that game. Anyways, Lewandowski got his first World Cup goal against Saudi Arabia where Poland beat them 2-0, and then they ended up losing to Argentina 2-0 in the 3rd game. If Mexico won 3-0 against Saudi Arabia, Poland would not have gone through. However, the score of the Mexico-Saudi Arabia game was only 2-1, so now Poland gets to go to the round 16 for the first time in 36 years. Now for my prediction, it's relatively simple. I love upsets, but this isn't going to be one of them. France, I think, is going to win this game 3-0, and Mbappe is going to have a brace in this game. Alright, moving on, we got England versus Senegal. Now, England have had a pretty good showing so far at this World Cup. In fact, they destroyed Iran in the first game 6-2, which is really impressive by the way. Then they ended up tying to USA 0-0, and I'm not gonna lie, England were the 2nd best team in that game. I thought USA were better. However, in the 3rd game, they went against Wales, and they destroyed them 3-0 thanks to a Marcus Rashford masterclass. So yeah, England are going into their knockouts of the World Cup extremely confident. They only looked somewhat poor against the US because the US were not afraid of attacking England. Now, speaking of attacking sides, let's go to Senegal, who are going against England in the round of 16. Now, despite them losing their best and most historic player ever, Sadio Mane, for this World Cup. They've been playing very well in this tournament. They fought hard against the Netherlands even though they lost 2-0, but then they went on to show their attacking prowess against Qatar, beating them 3-1, and then securing a round of 16 qualification against Ecuador by beating them 2-1. Senegal are a good team without Sadio Mane, so England should not be taking them lightly. Just like the US, I see Senegal as a side that isn't going to be afraid of attacking England. So for me, I think this game will end up being 1-1 by the end of normal time, but sadly for Senegal, I see Marcus Rashford scoring in extra time to give England the huge win against Senegal 2-1. Super close for an upset, but I just don't see it happening, sadly. Alright, next game up, we got Japan versus Croatia. Now, Japan have pulled up a masterclass and somehow topped their group. I don't know how they done it, but somehow in the first game, they beat Germany 2-1, and then beat Spain in the all-important third game 2-1. Reminder, Japan were actually down 1-0 at halftime to both of these world-class footballing countries. And the fact that Japan still won the game deserves your respect, because they definitely have mine. You just gotta love the Japanese spirit. However, even though all this is great, Japan still somehow lost to Costa Rica 1-0 in the second game. This same Costa Rica got spanked by Spain 7-0 in the first game. So how did Japan somehow manage to lose against Costa Rica, bro? This just shouldn't have been possible. But this clearly shows me that Japan have a weakness. For some reason, Japan do great against European footballing nations, but when it comes to not so good footballing nations, they just suck. Anyways, moving on to Croatia, they've had a decent World Cup campaign so far. They drew to Morocco in the first game 0-0, which is okay, I guess. But they did end up slapping Canada 4-1 to eliminate them, so they definitely picked it up for sure. However, they did draw to Belgium 0-0, and that's why Croatia did not top their group. So although Croatia are a great European footballing side and they were the World Cup finalists last time, they haven't been all that convincing to me. That's why I got an upset for this game, and I got Japan beating Croatia 3-2 in extra time. I love rooting for the underdog, so I'm backing for the Japanese. Let's go, Japan! Now moving on to the following game, we got Morocco versus Spain. Now to everybody's surprise, Morocco actually ended up topping their group with a gigantic 7 points. That's huge for Morocco, and I definitely underestimated them. Anyways, Morocco got off to a decent start in this World Cup campaign by drawing to Croatia 0-0. I thought Croatia was gonna easily win this game, so this kinda caught me off guard. Anyways, the next game is where Morocco really shocked the world, where they beat Belgium 2-0. This win for Morocco pretty much destroyed Belgium's chances of winning the World Cup for the last time for their golden generation. It was a huge win for Morocco as well, so well done. And then in the third game, they beat an already eliminated Canada 2-1 to cement their top spot in the group. Just great performances by Morocco. They really surprised all of us. Now let's go over to Spain, who have been okay so far. They did destroy Costa Rica 7-0, and that's when we all thought Spain was going to easily dominate this group. However, they did end up drawing to Germany 1-1 despite being the better team, and then they proceeded to lose to Japan 2-1 even though they had the lead in that game. Spain also only managed to grab 4 points from this group, and that's low-key disappointing. Now on the real, this game is going to be really hard for me to predict, and I'm sure it's going to be really hard for Hakimi to play it. After all, Hakimi was born and raised in Spain, and that's where he developed his football skills. He's basically going against the country that brought him up. With that being said though, I think Hakimi is going to have a masterclass game along with his teammate Ziyech. And I think Morocco will pull off the upset against Spain and win this game 2-1. I told y'all, I'm a bold man. On to the next game, we got Brazil versus South Korea. Now Brazil have been okay in this World Cup so far. They had a good 2-0 win over Serbia in the first game, but they lost Neymar due to injury. Now Neymar is supposed to return for the round of 16, but we don't know for sure because that ankle injury does not look good. Now that win over Serbia was great, but when they went against Switzerland, I expected a better performance. Yes, I know they came away with a 1-0 win thanks to a late Casemiro goal, but I still expected a better performance like I said earlier. Anyways, because of these 2 wins, Brazil were pretty much guaranteed top spot in the group. That's why when they played against Cameroon, they played with their bench. And because of this, they actually ended up losing to Cameroon 1-0, which is a huge surprise, but it's hard to take this game into account because like I said, Brazil played with their bench. Now enough about Brazil, bro. Let's talk about South Korea, who surprisingly got into the round of 16. They drew the first game 0-0 to Uruguay, which is pretty underwhelming, but what's even more underwhelming is they lost to Ghana in a 3-2 thriller. I was kind of expecting for South Korea to come away with a win in that game, so this kind of caught me off guard. Now they had to win against Portugal in the last game if they wanted any chance of making it to the next round. And sadly, it did not start off well for South Korea because they went down early against Portugal. However, after an equalizer and an extremely late goal from Hwang Hee-chan thanks to a Heung-min Son assist, they surprisingly beat Portugal 2-1 and made it to the round of 16. It also helped that Ghana didn't lose 3-0 to Uruguay, because if they did, Uruguay would have made it through instead of South Korea. Anyways, talking about the round of 16 game, it seems like a pretty clear-cut decision for me. Brazil is the most stacked team this tournament, and even though their play hasn't been that good, they're still probably going to win this game in my opinion. And with Neymar potentially back, it's going to be almost impossible for South Korea to get a result here. That's why I'm going for a 4-1 win for Brazil in this game. And to everyone who disagrees with my scoreline, Brazil literally beat South Korea in June 5-1, so this scoreline is not outlandish. Now moving on to the last game, we got a pretty good one, which is Portugal versus Switzerland. Portugal have had a good World Cup campaign so far in my opinion. They had a great 3-2 win over Ghana in the first game, which was a little too close for Portugal Portugal's liking, but it's fine. They then beat Uruguay 2-0 in the next game, which essentially secured the top spot in the group for the Portuguese. Now in the third game against South Korea, they rested some of their players, and that's pretty much why Portugal lost to South Korea 2-1. They still should have performed better in that game, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of excusable because they weren't playing all of their starters. Now for Switzerland, they have silenced a lot of doubters in this World Cup, including me. They beat Cameroon 1-0 in a pretty scrappy game, but then ended up losing to Brazil 1-0 in the following game. They pretty much had to beat Serbia to secure that second place spot, and that's exactly what they did. They beat Serbia, one of their big rivals, 3-2 when it mattered most, and now they're through to the round of 16. I had a lot of doubts about Shaqiri as well, considering his form for Chicago Fire has not been too good, but he has done well so far, especially in the game against Serbia. And Xhaka is doing a great job being the Swiss captain as well. Anyways, who do I think is going to win this game? Will there be another upset from me? Sadly, I don't think so. I think Portugal's squad is too talented to go out of the World Cup in the round of 16, especially when Bruno Fernandes is balling out right now for his country and carrying them. That's why I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Portugal with CR7 bagging one of the goals and Bruno with the other. This will be a close game though. I won't be that surprised if Switzerland come off with a win. Anyways, let me know down in the comments whether you agree or disagree with my World Cup round of 16 predictions. Real quick though, remember to subscribe to the channel and also hit the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I drop a banger video. Also leave a like, let's try reaching 300 likes for this one, and follow my Twitter at Nabhuto, I would appreciate it. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!